Good morning. My name is Mary Adams, and I'm the Clinical Director for Young Adult and Family Programs at Lantern Organization. And like Carrie, there's going to be a little bit of organizational self-disclosure in my discussion this morning. First, a little bio on Lantern. Lantern was established in 1997, and we currently have 15 programs in New York City with over 1,200 units of housing. We opened our first supported housing program in 2000 for families, and now we have 6 buildings with 309 units of family housing. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about infusing clinical services into case management with families. And interestingly, when Carrie and I were speaking before our presentations, we both talked about reflecting on our own practice and rethinking it. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Lantern found that in our work with families, what was happening is we were finding ourselves caught off guard or being reactive to something that was happening in a family, and we stepped back and said, all right, wait a minute. Is the model that we've been using with individuals working as effectively with families? So we stepped back and did an internal self-assessment. Initially, Lantern, like many organizations, provided services for single adults. And then we expanded to young adults and transferred our model into that population. Everything worked fine. Basically, we were using a traditional case management, task-oriented service model where problems were seen in a linear path, right? Problems identified, services are located, referrals are made, and then we move from there to the next problem or another referral. So with single adults, this worked fine. A lot of referrals to mental health, physical health, substance abuse programs. And then when we expanded into young adults, we used that model, and things might have been a little bit more concrete in services, employment, education, but the model worked fine. So we transferred it over to our work with families as well, right? Case management centered on one-on-one discussions with the client, interactions and planning with clients, and even even a serious relapse or a hospitalization with an individual client just results in working with the individual client. With families, case management can be a minefield. A referral to substance abuse doesn't mean referring the client. It also means potentially a young child entering foster care, an older child in that family opting out completely and just going to stay with the older boyfriend, right? Maybe coming back pregnant, etc. So suddenly a previously stable family has imploded. Beyond the parent relapsing, the fallout on the children, if the teenager becomes pregnant, could go into the next generation, right? So we're looking at ourselves and saying, could we have seen this happening? What, is our model tight enough? Now when the mom comes home, she's stabilized from her treatment, the young child is coming home and is wetting the bed or fighting in school, and the teenager can return pregnant or out of school altogether. So the host of problems in the fabric of this household have completely changed. And again, we found ourselves grappling with those things and asking ourselves, could we have seen this coming? The linear approach that had served us so well with individuals just didn't seem to work with our families. Everybody's behaviors and actions are interrelated, and services planners must take this into effect. And as Carrie said, we thought we were doing this, but we were finding that it wasn't really happening. Case managers and support teams must be able to see the whole picture and anticipate the fallout before and after incidents, okay? So not just responding and not just guarding against. While case managers may be excellent at working with individuals, grappling with the dynamics and interfamily relationships can be confusing, overwhelming, and frustrating without clinical guidance. So how often do we hear somebody say, he was such a rambunctious, happy kid, and now he's so angry and aggressive, and he's involved in a gang? Or, oh, she was such a sweet little girl, and suddenly she's dropped out of school and she's smoking marijuana with all her friends in the apartment every day. So these were the kinds of things that were coming up. At Lantern, we looked carefully at these situations and we said, okay, what can we do about this? And ultimately we decided that we needed to make conscious and concrete changes in our service delivery model, primarily looking at infusing clinical services at different levels. So what does this look like on the ground level? Well, firstly, we had to operationalize a relatively new approach for us into our systems and procedures. And some of this stuff is going to sound basic, but think it through, because I think we've made the mistake of saying, no, we're doing that, but we weren't really implementing the practices solidly enough. So again, we were still seeing these problems erupt in families and take us by surprise. So firstly, our stance is that in family work, the family is the client. Sounds obvious, right? But Identifying the family of the client is different than saying, we have Sue, the parent, and she has 2 daughters. Now it's not Sue and 2 daughters. It's Sue, and it's Sarah, and it's Kim. And the way we solidified this approach within our agency is now everybody is put into our electronic case record. So when you open a case record, you see every family member. They're all identified as clients, and we're monitoring and looking at services that serve each person in the family. Mom may be stable and actually not getting as much services as the 16-year-old daughter who we're watching sort of crash and burn, right? Which can happen to a lot of teenagers. We also revamped our job descriptions. We looked at them and we decided, beyond asking for experience of working with mentally ill or substance abuse, when we're looking for family caseworkers, we want diverse expertise. We want people that have comprehensive understanding in child and adolescent development, or family dynamics, or a systems approach to working with families. We also want people to emphasize or have the ability to understand things in the context of a family. We changed our language when we're hiring for family case managers. We're clear in the interview that the family is the client. So again, if you're going to come and work for us, we're going to say, it's not just John. He's got 2 teenage boys, and actually the middle child is the one that we find needs the most services. So we're articulating these things up front, letting people know that this is going to be a busy job and may be different than the traditional case management job working with individuals. We'll ask questions about working with parents, but we're also going to ask you questions about, what about angry teenagers? What's your understanding of developmental delays? What's your take on intergenerational family dynamics, right? Because we all know the grandmother with the grandchild and then mom returns into the home, bound to be problems. We also created new positions that we felt we needed to supplement our family programs. Again, traditionally we had case managers, program director, maintenance crew. We now have night managers in some programs that can attend clinical meetings during the day, understand what's happening with the family, and then be here at nighttime to either assist the family or report back things that might be brewing. That way the clinical team has the heads up, something's coming, right? Because we really need to be anticipatory with families. We cannot wait until our 16-year-old has dropped out of school, our 14-year-old has been arrested, etc. Wellness and recovery counselors have now been added into our programs with families, and these we're looking for their expertise in child development, learning and education, as well as group facilitation skills. They are doing most of our building of programming for children, because we know that stabilizing children goes far to stabilize families, right? Our next level was, almost?
Well,
okay. Our next level was ensuring clinical oversight and support was in place for these programs and for our services. Our directors are social work, but they're overseeing and supervising through a family systems perspective. Clinical case conferences are used to ask, to explore what is happening in the family, not is mom going to her program. Next from that, though, besides clinical services with the staff, we're having clinically oriented or geared meetings with families. When we see problems brewing or when issues come up, we can often meet with a group of the family members to troubleshoot problems, and also to model things such as conflict resolution and mediation skills that they can bring back into their families. And yet another level is we're making concrete plans on paper with families. So we're literally sitting down with families and saying, so Joan's going off to college and she takes care of the 3 young children. Let's talk about what this is going to look like. Very anticipatory. We want to be ahead of the ball on these problems that otherwise can erupt and implode in the family. Lastly, we want to bring the family on board to our style. At interviews or upon move-in, we're explaining that we're a hands-on organization, that we're going to be working with your whole family. Because a lot of families say, it's just me, leave my kids alone, et cetera, et cetera. We're not trying to be intrusive. What we try to do is explain that we are experts, and we're to be used and trusted as partners in all cases. Count on us to work with your kids. Count on us to work with your problems with your partner. So we're really trying to become partners here. We get a clear understanding of what services they're getting and what services they might need. We talk about identifying ages and developmental stages of people within the home so that we're thinking and anticipating, but they are too, okay? So that the family begins to see what's going to happen, what's going to develop in our family. And we also ask families.
I'm distracting her, but
sorry, and I have like 2 more sentences. And we're also asking family, how do you deal and cope with transitions and changes? We have to begin to have families anticipate so that they can come to us, I think something is brewing. We have problems. So lastly, do we say therapeutic model out with traditional case management? No. Absolutely, you need traditional case management services. Concrete tasks, escorting to appointments, making referrals, all of those things remain critical to the supportive structures to families, but decisions have to be filtered through a clinical lens with a solid understanding of each family's strengths, dynamics, and interrelations.